The Performance Tour wouldn't be possible without our wonderful sponsors, so I'd like to thank Tricentis and QA Consultants for your support of the performance engineering community. Thank you.
I am on a quest. I want to find out how to make software and hardware perform at their peak. I want to know how to make applications faster, better, and more efficient. And while I'm at it, I want to have a little fun. Don't think I can do it? Just watch me. I'm Scott Moore, and this is the Performance Tour.
Chaos engineering, resilience engineering, you keep hearing it a lot more. I've got a lot of questions about it. I want to know, how does it relate to performance testing and performance engineering? What is it makes it special? What makes it different? That's what we're going to talk about on this episode of the Performance Tour. Right now, we're hearing a lot in the market about chaos and, more importantly, resilience. When we talk about site reliability engineers and DevOps, resilience comes up more and more. Because of that, I wanted to have an episode dedicated to resilience and chaos testing. And for that, I'm bringing in the experts from Gremlin, my friend Daryl Dunn. Daryl, thank you for being on the Performance Tour.
Thanks, Scott.
So you're with Gremlin, but we go back a little further than that.
Yes, we do.
You want to talk a little bit about how we first met?
Yeah, sure. So we first met working at Deloitte in Nashville for the Practice Service Center. And at the time, you were doing performance testing, and I was doing SAP testing functionally. And so, yeah, that's where we got our start. So we kind of crossed paths a little bit in there. And I know there that you built a performance center of excellence. And so that was really great addition for Deloitte.
We had a lot of good times, and we had a lot of challenges as well. Darryl, why don't you tell our audience about you, your experience with testing, and then how that's led to Gremlin?
Yeah, absolutely. So, started out at Deloitte, and then before that, I was like a hired gun for testing, doing Windrunner, Loadrunner, and then kind of just morphed into doing testing for Deloitte. And then from there, I worked for Oracle for a while, and then also worked for Vanderbilt, and then decided to get into solutions architecture, pre-sales, and so worked with CA, App Dynamics, BMC as a sales engineer, and so now I'm with Gremlin, and so it's a really it's kind of like come back to my roots a little bit in testing, and really exciting.
I remember you got into DevOps well before I did, about a year or two before I did. And one of our conversations, you were telling me about how you were getting into Chef and Puppet and the orchestration of CI/CD pipelines and things. So you've got a lot of experience in that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. The world is just everything's automated, and so you want to have that with any type of tool or solution you use. Make sure they have a strong API that you can interact with your tool set with.
I'm all about performance engineering. That's all I've really cared about my whole career, and I love breaking things with load testing and stress testing. But now I'm hearing, well, that's not enough. We have chaos that we have to put into play here, which builds the resilience of our application, which is becoming more and more important. And the first time I ever heard of chaos testing was when Netflix, they had a very set of skilled engineers there that sort of put together a package they called the Symbian Army. And I remember it was Chaos Monkey and Chaos Gorilla and different, and then it began to morph into something else. And I started hearing more about Gremlin and some of the others. Can you tell me how chaos testing has sort of evolved from just that initial Netflix thing to what it is now?
Absolutely. So you go back, Netflix, I believe it was Microsoft, Xbox, and a couple other folks were in the cloud, and there was an outage, and Netflix stayed up. And people were like, how'd you do that? What are you doing? And then that's when it kind of got out that Netflix was introducing the Chaos Monkey in their environments. And so basically, you had to engineer your solutions to stay up. I mean, DNS would go down, the Chaos Monkey would do all kinds of things, right? Randomly. So you had to be ready. And in their lower environments, you had the Chaos Monkey running, so you had to survive that to move forward in the pipeline. So fast forward, Colton Anders, our founder, said, hey, he worked for both Netflix and then AWS. said, hey, we can take this. This is a great solution, and we can productize it. And that's how Gremlin came about.
I see.
So
awesome. So when I hear the word chaos, I don't hear something positive. I hear this is going to, especially if I'm an executive or I'm an owner of the company or an owner of the application, and somebody comes and says, guess what? We're going to start chaos testing everything, and we're going to break, and we're going to test in production sometimes. That doesn't give me a warm fuzzy, right? So is chaos testing, is that a big risk to take?
So that's chaos testing in the early days, okay? We at Gremlin, one of our best practices is it's a methodical process. It's not something you just let go in production anymore. You come up with a hypothesis, and let's say you say my service can stand a full second of latency, and then you can unleash a Gremlin to supply that, to create that condition. So it's no longer, and we recommend to customers start in lower environments and work their way forward till they're comfortable. Some customers, we have a large percentage that do use Gremlin in production, and we have another percentage that doesn't, and and they get value both ways.
I see. So I want to reference a piece of video to you. So
Sure.
we went recently, James Pulley and I, we went out on the road to Texas, and during the 2 sessions of Austin and Dallas, we covered chaos and resilience. And I want to show you one of the things James Pulley says in debate to useful chaos testing. So let's look at that now.
Okay, this seems to fill a gap in a lot of organizations that don't have effective performance testing.
Ooh.
Period. End of story. Because if you're doing effective performance testing, you're answering a lot of questions that would normally fall into the resilience category. But instead, you've downloaded bees with machine guns and you've pointed it at your site just to see what happens. That doesn't seem like a very good proposition to me. Now, bees with machine guns is kind of a cool name. I got to give them that. But the actual effect of taking and doing tests of this type when you don't have a mature organization already to understand what this is going to cause and how to fix it doesn't really give you a whole lot of value in the end. Now, I just painted a big old target on my chest right here. So
They're glaring at you.
I expect people to, if you don't want to talk to me right now, you can take me out later and beat me up in the alley, I guess. But yeah, I just don't see it.
So what? Hey, go ahead.
Sorry, I didn't raise my hand. So I think the thing that you're missing though is that with performance engineering and resiliency engineering, you're fundamentally testing for 2 different scenarios, right? Like performance engineering, you're trying to optimize your application to make sure that it runs in, call it the best case scenario. Whereas resiliency engineering, you should be trying to target and predict for failure in a worst case scenario. So I think they're both absolutely required, and I agree with you that one should not lead the other, specifically with chaos. But fundamentally, I don't think that you're quite there with the concept that like chaos should never occur outside of performance, right?
I'm not buying it.
You're not buying it.
I'm not buying it. And the reason why I'm not buying it is because I don't generally see, and there may be exceptions to this, I don't see mature organizations embracing chaos engineering. I see a lot of immature organizations embracing it wholly and using it to replace performance testing.
So I have a follow-up thought for you, actually, on that. On that, we agree.
Yeah, so I see it being used to displace what should be doing right now. If it's a separate discipline, now I have gone through the process in performance engineering of setting error conditions on a network interface to 100%, taking down nodes and things of that nature to see what happens, and maybe that bleeds into reliability or resilience type engineering. So I just don't see it.
Let him do his follow-up.
So, follow-up point, yep. So I've given talks on chaos engineering, and full disclosure, at United Health Group, I owned chaos engineering for several years. And my number one topic when I spoke externally and internally at United Health Group was convincing teams why they were not ready for chaos, because it does tend to get overly adopted by teams that are immature. But I still think like there's a life cycle that you have to be in to where you're ready for chaos engineering. And it is on the very far end of maturity, which most teams don't understand. Because with chaos engineering, like the idea is you've got an SRE group or another group that is basically fully vetted out. They've got all the stuff, the graceful degradation put into place so that when the app goes down, it's ready, everything's perfect. So now the only thing that you can do then is validate your hypothesis that your app is ready to go if you pull the plug on a node by pulling the plug on the node and verifying that it works.
And on that, we agree that it does require a mature organization. I say that if you have a mature performance engineering practice, you are already engaging in behaviors that are normally allied with chaos engineering. That is, you are unplugging a node. You are changing the number of processors in the system. You are consuming some amount of network bandwidth in order to understand how the system behaves in a resource-sparse environment. But what we are seeing today, primarily, are people replacing tools with expertise in this chaos testing model, and they're not a very mature organization, and they just bring in Gremlin or other tools and say, oh, let's push the button. You know, I listened to the sales guy, and they said, with this tool, any business analyst can, fill in the blank. We all know the veracity of that statement over time, but, I'm not buying that chaos engineering is really decoupled from a mature performance engineering practice. I feel like I need one of those tables up here with the sign over the front. It's like, change my mind. How does chaos testing relate to load testing? The experiments that you're conducting are under load. You're just using different tools in chaos testing that are designed to consume some amount of a specific resource and see what happens to the behavior of the system. That consumption could be, we turn off a portion of the architecture. We're denying some number of front-end web servers or middleware servers. We are turning off some number of network interfaces. We are reducing the bandwidth on those network interfaces from 10 gig Ethernet to 1 gig to 100 megabit to 10 to see what happens. We're engaging in those experiments to see with resource scarcity what happens to the performance of our system. And if you're monitoring a system when you're doing performance testing, you should know this. However, most of the new tools that are on the market are unitaskers. All they do is throw load. They don't monitor. That's up to another tool. So you're getting a problem in the industry of, okay, I don't know how resources are being used. That's what's driving performance. So now I'm going to go grab these chaos engineering tools that consume a resource so I can see what happens to my response times. Well, go turn off a processor, go change your network speed. Do these things and test, reduce your total application stack to a single stack, one of each node. You'll find out real fast what happens, and you don't have to use these specific tools.
So Daryl, what do you think about that video and what James said?
So I'd like to just say, what is the measure of maturity in an org? Because let's say you and I create a company and we want to put in multiple clouds. We want to have our storage in AWS, S3, and we want to do our compute in Azure. Okay, so to easily test that, Gremlin is a perfect fit to be able to say what happens when you lose your S3 bucket, or when you experience latency or packet loss, those kind of things. I think that's what is where we could be an immature organization, but we could still utilize Gremlin chaos testing to test those services. But then a lot of times I would say that it's a better together, because we work with a lot of customers that load their apps with JMeter, BlazeMeter, Loadrunner, and then they use Gremlin to shut down this service to see what happens, to test those things. Gremlin's really well suited for testing things, Kubernetes, like disruption budgets and pods, those kind of things. So those things, I think one size doesn't fit all. And I kind of always want to avoid absolutes in this business, because sure enough, you'll find someone that a scenario fits that, you can't just say no one can use chaos engineering without performance testing, or vice versa. I think it's what works both ways, but I think it's a better together type discussion.
So you see that maybe the chaos test output, if you blend that with the output of a performance testing tool or load testing tool, you've got additional statistics, metrics, and analysis that can be added to it. So not only do you understand, here's how your application performs and your typical performance metrics, but here's also chaos metrics that go with that, and combining those together is sort of the best of both worlds, right?
Exactly. But also to say, we have primitives that actually take resources away. So we can actually have a CPU at 80% and keep that CPU for the cluster running, for 4 hours, and put the system under load. But we're not like extra, we're not putting users through it. Does that make sense?
Right.
And we can do that very easily. I mean, my experience with performance testing is you got to create a scenario, do some things. So for a lower environment, you just say, hey, I want to see what it does under load. We're perfectly suited for that type of testing in a mature or immature organization down at lower environments,
right,
for people to see what it does.
So more and more I hear resiliency. Is chaos testing and resiliency testing or engineering, is it the same thing, or is it deviating, or what's the difference?
That's a great observation. And you'll also hear the term reliability engineering.
That's right.
And those interchanged. So chaos engineering is moving to reliability engineering, and we're kind of one of the same. And it's funny you say that. I mean, Gremlin is coming out in the fall timeframe with resilient scores for services. So you'll use the 4 golden signals from your APM, and Gremlin will help you monitor those, and you'll be able to see a score for each service to tell you how you're doing. Because right now, you can run chaos tests against a service. It may be more of I can look at my Datadog or my App Dynamics and I can think, I think we're pretty good. But now you're going to get a score based on different chaos tests you run, also how you're doing with latency, throughput, and all those things. So you could combine that with performance testing as well. Again, it's a better together type scenario, but all those things would impact your score.
I see. So you could not only make this a load testing and performance testing play, but also tapping into an observability platform and tapping into that, whereas observability is trying to say, how well is my business doing in this area? Or is not only it performing well, but is it doing well? Is the app doing well? Is the service doing well? But you would be answering the question, is it also resilient right now?
Right.
And how do we know that?
Right.
So that score would tell you that, those metrics would tell you that.
Exactly. And it's also, we start out, we coach customers to do dependency testing first. Because how would a performance test tell you your region just went down?
Right.
And so, we can make that test easily. How do you, because it's kind of like my service can be reliable. Is it performant is a different thing. So if I have a service that is performant but unreliable, where have I gotten?
It's fast when it works, right? I understand, I get it, and I think you've kind of clarified for a lot of our viewers kind of the differences. There's some subtleties there as well. Yes, maybe you could create chaos and resilience in a performance test scenario, but it would kind of like be doing it with one hand tied behind your back, whereas something like Gremlin says, okay, well, let's just put it out there for you, so it's just a button click away.
Right. And today, we have an integration with Loadrunner where you can schedule a load test and also trigger chaos tests with the same, all in one setting.
Right.
So, like we said, it's a better together type thing, because we can pull off a lot of things in Gremlin much easier than if you had to script it all yourself. And you get and plus our platform is secure. So you don't have any worry of security injections with someone putting malicious code into a script or something. So that's a concern that customers have. But your point of going from chaos to resiliency, reliability is well heard, and we're totally all about becoming that reliability engineering partner with customers.
Can you share anything about the near-term future roadmap for Gremlin in terms of other integrations? Are there other performance testing tools you'd like to integrate with, or observability platforms?
So today we have integrations with a lot of different tools, and we have our Gremlin has a rich API. Everything we do, we're API first platform. So basically, if you can invoke API on like Jenkins or any type of pipeline tool, GitHub Actions, you can call chaos tests in your pipeline. But yeah, those are kind of we have many integrations. We could spend probably a whole interview just talking about that. So
that's awesome. Well, great. Anything else you'd like to share about chaos, resiliency, Gremlin?
Just the fact that we're adding a superset to Gremlin to allow customers to score their services, and that's coming out here in the fall, and we're really excited about it. I'm actually have the beta and working with some customers right now on it, so it's looking really, really good, and I think customers are going to be really happy.
Great. Well, there you have it. You wanted to know about chaos and resiliency and how it relates to performance engineering. Daryl Dunn's just explained it to you. I hope that you'll review this a couple times. I've learned a lot today, and I hope you will too. So, Daryl, thanks again for being on the show. Man, thanks.
Thanks, Scott.
So I just got, are you rolling or? Okay, can you pause it for just a second? And what the performance engineer can do, this is not going the way I want, okay. Take two.